What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So as we head towards the Switch 2 launch, we're also getting closer to different outlets just getting review units for the system to start up preview coverage and eventually reviews. Well, now it appears we may not see that much coverage ahead of launch. Nintendo is giving a very strange reason, I think, as to why, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a major shakeup at Sony, one that once again has many of us questioning their live service aspirations. And then we also have an odd situation that's starting to brew around Marathon, and it actually doesn't really have to do about the gameplay itself or anything that's come in question, but actually the art side of things and the potential for some serious plagiarism. We'll go over all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or the link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Kingdom Hearts 4, because we just talked about the mobile gacha game that was canceled. And the idea was, okay, well, maybe there's something with Kingdom Hearts 4 coming up soon. And actually, it happened before that story went live for Newswave. So let's take a look. We actually have some screenshots. Now, this was posted by Square Enix, along with a statement saying, "We're currently working hard on Kingdom Hearts 4 and we'll continue pouring ourselves into the game's development. We're dedicated to making this an experience that lives up to your expectation. We've seen how excited you are, and we are truly grateful from the bottom of our hearts. We are equally excited and can't wait to share more about Kingdom Hearts 4 when the time is right. Until then, we appreciate your patience. Thank you for your continued support." Well, it's technically been 3 years since they had that initial reveal for Kingdom Hearts 4, and then like that quick trailer that we saw. But I guess we have some screenshots to go off here, and then sort of almost a collage that they put together and posted online. So it still feels like we're a ways off from this release, and not necessarily what Kingdom Hearts fans want to hear. But I guess it's better than nothing after they just canceled a Kingdom Hearts game. Yes, a gacha game, but at least one that was tied into a bunch of lore. Also, we had another random Nintendo Switch Online drop when it comes to the Nintendo 64 section in that expansion pack. You can see this over on Nintendo's official account. They say, "Experience explosive hits and hundreds of thousands of killer combinations in Killer Instinct Gold." It's available right now in the expansion pack. In Japan, it looks like they had Ridge Racer 64 dropped in. Now, Killer Instinct Gold is a really fun, over-the-top fighting game on the Nintendo 64, and I remember Killer Instinct in arcades way back in the day, and when it did come up to the N64, it was actually really cool to see that version released to home consoles. I think it was pretty early on, obviously, in the 64's life, so it was there throughout the entirety of that generation, but Killer Instinct in general is just this really fun arcade game back in the day. It has been a while since I've played anything from this era of Killer Instinct. I guess the most recent one on the Xbox, that's like the last one I really played. So this will actually be a lot of fun to drop into the NSO service like immediately. I'll fire it up and give it a look and see how it at least runs and looks there. Oh, and we did accidentally find out the title for the next Super Mario movie, and we can see this is over on The Verge, where they say Universal appears to have confirmed that the next Mario film will be titled Super Mario World. Title was included in a press release about upcoming movies, but apparently by mistake since it was removed shortly after publication. So yeah, whoops on that one. But Super Mario World, so no 2 in there, no Super Mario Brothers 2 movie or something. I'm just going with a more just original title there, but also playing into the Super Nintendo release, which I guess would make sense if you're going from the original Nintendo in terms of like video game releases. You have the original Nintendo for their first movie, and then you go up to the Super Mario World or the Super Nintendo for their second. Yeah, we can line it up that way, but it also makes me wonder if this is going to be just an original story. It sounds strange because, I mean, technically the Mario movie that we just had, it does set up for them to continue their adventures in the Mushroom Kingdom, but maybe they want to go a different route and just start fresh again with a new story in the Mario franchise. Hard to say until we get, of course, our first trailer, but at least for now, we have the title Super Mario World. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Switch 2 and the expectations around reviews or preview coverage leading into its release, and then also on launch day, because it does seem right now it's going to be kind of spotty. And in fact, I would expect there to be limited or just no coverage immediately on launch for the system in terms of big outlets even having review units to go over. So this was posted up. This is over on the Game Business from Christopher Dring. It says the game's press will not be receiving Nintendo Switch 2 consoles until just before it comes out. The Game Business has learned. Some media have been warned they will not have their machine until launch day. So I guess just even shipping out, it'll arrive later on that day, which is interesting because that means that many people on YouTube, for example, or just go out and pick them up, will have the system before some of these larger outlets. And when they say Nintendo has told journalists that this is due to the requirement of a significant day one patch. Now, some were looking at this saying, oh wow, there's a day one patch to the system. Yeah, I mean, like the Wii U had a patch that you needed day one. The Switch technically had like a system update from what I remember. So this isn't new necessarily. Say Nintendo is holding some press preview events for Mario Kart World, which will give journalists and critics an extended play of the upcoming video game. But the reality is that there will be very few, if any, reviews of Switch 2 or its games until after the machine has come out. So I don't think that's a great excuse from Nintendo. Like, oh, there's a firmware patch you need or a day one patch for the Switch 2, as if they either couldn't download it before then or get this, Nintendo could load it onto the system before they send it out. I mean, it's like, hey, what are we, Nintendo? How can we make that happen? No, I think in this case, though, Nintendo, from their perspective, do they need reviews for this system when they're already flying off the shelves anyway? At this point, it's being sold, yes, by the fact that Mario Kart World, which Mario Kart, big game, obviously, on the Switch, and the follow-up, the sequel that people have been waiting for forever now, since really the Wii U, would be a launch title. Yeah, that is, as we're seeing right now, enough to drive demand to where they don't need reviewers to give them a good review or anything like that, even just coverage to sell the system. So one, I don't think it's a high priority for Nintendo at this time, and two, it's a way for them to say, you know what, if we'll just send it on launch day, we don't have to worry about someone breaking embargo and just putting information out there we don't want out there before release anyway. So to me, the firmware patch, whatever, that's just not a great excuse at all, because they can obviously figure that out and ship it out. So it is there before release. The thing to me, though, that would be more of a problem would be games not getting any kind of review ahead of release, and specifically third-party games. So think about it this way. If you were a third party who is launching day one alongside the Switch 2, you won't have reviews for your game probably till days, even the following week. So it's a very odd predicament there, because you could have a very good port and you'll kind of miss this window of press and all these eyeballs being on the system at launch with its just launch lineup library. You'll kind of miss out on a little bit of that of, oh wow, we really did have a good version. You should check this game out maybe after you're done playing Mario Kart World and you're looking around for something else. So that to me is the biggest thing there, more for third parties than first party with Nintendo. They pretty much have their stuff figured out. So I guess don't expect too much coverage for the Switch 2 in terms of independent coverage or reviews without the typical guardrails being in place at some of these preview events that Nintendo will be holding and inviting press to. At the very least, I'll be picking my system up at midnight, and we'll do a live stream, actually, unbox it, check it out, first impressions, the whole thing, and then expect a ton of coverage to follow over the next couple of days as we sort of go over everything and, of course, tear it down. Next up, let's talk about a major shakeup at Sony. This has to do with Haven Studios. Sony bought Haven Studios back in 2022, so about 3 years ago, and the idea was Jade Raymond, here she comes, fresh off of her short stay, we'll say, with Google and Stadia, and that whole thing got shut down after, of course, she had bounced around between Ubisoft and EA and then all over the place there. And now here she comes with this new studio she's formed, and Sony comes in, buys Haven Studios, and they show us the game they're working on called Fair Game $. It's supposed to be Fair Games, obviously, but since then, after they showed it, it's been pretty quiet until yesterday when a report was published from Jason Schreier at Bloomberg that Jade Raymond had left the studio. Let's take a look. This is over on Bloomberg, where they say PlayStation leadership didn't give Haven staff a reason for Jade Raymond's departure. But it came several weeks after an external test of Haven's first game, the online shooter Fair Games, which, by the way, Jason Schreier did follow up here. It appears that Haven Studios or Sony, somebody, dropped the $sign and just replaced it with the S. So I guess they're not leaning into that kind of title anymore. It's just Fair Games now, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Some developers at Haven were concerned about how the game was received and its progress. said the people who asked not to be identified because they aren't authorized to speak publicly. Quote, Jade Raymond has been an incredible partner and visionary force in founding Haven Studios, a PlayStation spokesperson said in a statement. We are deeply grateful for her leadership and contributions and wish her all the best in her next chapter. The spokesperson added the company is committed to supporting Haven Studios and excited to continue the journey with new co-studio heads Marie, Yves Danis, and Pierre-Francois Sapinski. Oh boy. Well, this doesn't look good for Haven. Can we just put it out there? It doesn't look good for Haven. It doesn't look good for Fair Games at this point. When the head of the studio leaves weeks after an external playtest did not go well for your flagship title that your entire studio is attached to, would anyone be surprised if in a few weeks, a month, so forth, that they show up, hey, Fair Games has been canceled? I think a lot of people would be like, yeah, okay, that would be it. They just move on. Oh, no, what are you got to do? Not a great situation here, obviously, for Sony's live service, clearly, because outside of Helldivers 2, they really haven't gotten traction. Like this, it's just another hit in the line of just failed attempts for live service. And the thing is, it doesn't seem like they're going to be slowing down because they've talked more and more during their investors briefing with things like monthly active users and engagement as being big focuses over console sales. So to me, that just means they're going to keep trying. Okay. We hear about their Team LFG that they formed that is working on something from Bungie. That's this Gummy Bears project. I think right now with Haven Studios, it's, I'm going to say right now, I'd be shocked if Fair Games came out. Originally, I said, there's something else there. There's a reason they really bought Haven Studios. And the reason I think is just poor judgment at this point on Jim Ryan's part. And he doesn't work there now, right? So what does he care? He got his face on the cookie and he's out. And that's it. So, yeah, not great. And also, it does make me wonder about just Jade Raymond in general. The way that she's kind of navigated the industry, in the last 10 years, she hasn't released a game, but she keeps like going from place to place. And I feel like she's kind of getting paid for, like, goes to Google Stadia. Nothing works out there. She leaves, forms her own studio, gets purchased by Sony, leaves, just doesn't have to release a game. It's actually quite impressive. I will give her that she's been able to kind of work her way through the industry in this way. I don't know if she's going to pop up again, but it wouldn't surprise me, I guess, at this point, because it keeps happening. So there we have it. Fair Games, Haven Studios, not in a great spot right now. Next up, we'll talk about another live service game with Bungie and Sony, and that's Marathon. It doesn't seem like some of their alpha tests went over the best. There's a lot of discussion around if this game should be delayed, what needs to be changed, is it worth we think the $40 price tag on it. But there's something else right now that's brewing around Marathon and the situation with plagiarism, specifically with art assets. Now, we can see this is posted up. This is by N Squared. It says the Marathon Alpha released recently and its environments are covered with assets lifted from poster designs I made in 2017. Huh. Okay. People started lining these up next to in-game assets, environments, other things within Marathon, and they were doing a pretty good job rotating, lining them up correctly and stuff. And it's just hard to dispute. This doesn't look good for Marathon at this point. Now, it gets a little stranger here as people notice that Joseph Cross, who was tagged here even, is the franchise art director at Marathon, was following N Squared, this person, as well as several other people, apparently. They say, he's followed me for a few years and a few others from Bungie. Never had any communication, as in they've been following along with some of the work I've been doing, and now it's showing up in Marathon. So, of course, at this point, people are trying to figure out what happened here. Could it be that some of the people, some of the artists and stuff at Bungie were lifting the designs here? And could it be that they maybe use, I saw this AI getting thrown around, maybe they're pulling stuff from there, then inserting into the game. I mean, all that's possible right now because the evidence looks pretty straightforward, pretty airtight. So at this time, we're kind of waiting for Bungie even Sony, to make some sort of statement around this situation. I mean, it's hard to ignore because just this tweet alone that was put out there is almost 20,000 likes, almost 2 million views, all of that happening in the span of about 24 hours. So I still think we need to see a response, maybe an explanation, but at this point, just surface level, does not look good. So Marathon, who's already been going kind of through the ringer at this point, something else to stack on top of, once again, the live service push at Sony. And in our last bit of news, let's actually talk about the live service game that has worked at Sony, and that's Helldivers 2. The only thing with that is it was made by a studio that Sony does not own. That's Arrowhead. And now it appears they're gonna, I guess, set off and attempt their own thing, something that's self-funded. We can see this posted up. Now, this is by Arrowhead in their Discord when talking with the community, saying the wonderful thing is that thanks to the amazing support of you fine people, Arrowhead's future is quite bright, and we have the freedom to explore some really cool concepts that we couldn't have otherwise. Game 6, our next project, will happen the way it will happen thanks to you. The next game is 100% funded by ourselves, so we'll call 100% of those shots. They were being quizzed and honestly asked about some of the sketchy decisions, we'll say, that were made by Sony with things. Remember, with the PlayStation Network sign-in requirement, and that excluded many different countries on Steam, and people were just being kind of shut out from the game. It was kind of a mess there until they decided to back off of that, at least for Helldivers 2. They go on, though, to just say, you know what, hey, Sony, PlayStation are great. There would be no Helldivers if it wasn't for them. We're open to working with them again in the future. They're incredibly game/dev oriented. So they're not like throwing Sony or PlayStation under the bus. And that's kind of what you'd expect. Like, they're not going to go out there and say, wow, this game that's kind of given us the ability now to go to the next level and self-fund the company that partnered with us and helped make that possible. They're terrible. They're not going to say that, obviously. I'm sure they would like to work with them more in the future. At this point, Helldivers 2 continues to roll along. They just did a big update for it, and you can look Steam concurrent player counts just as an example. It's not the be-all end-all, but we can see the trends, and it just spikes completely. Hundreds some odd thousand players, boom, right then and there. Otherwise, it's pretty common for them to have 50, 60, 70,000 players at one point in time on Steam throughout the day. So I assume similar or maybe even better on PlayStation. It's just Helldivers 2 is that game that worked out really well for Sony with live service, but a lot of it, yes, is attributed to Arrowhead. So I'm very, very curious what they come up with when they are calling the shots 100%. Hey, one thing's for sure, you shouldn't need a PlayStation sign-in to play the game, and I assume they'll be able to be much more community-focused at that point with a lot of their decisions, so should be a lot of fun to see what they come up with. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, when do you think Microsoft will launch their next-generation Xbox? 2027 is the leading year right now, and then 2028, 2029 plus, and then 2026. There was a story that was going around with a job listing that mentioned the potential for Xbox to be developed with ARM. Like, so getting away from, I guess, x86 and moving into ARM would be interesting, just because I'd be curious to see the configuration they come up with there when it comes to the CPU and the GPU side and how all that works. I think, though, looking at that job listing more so, we're still looking at Xbox just completely as a console, as a box, whereas it's very clearly turning into an ecosystem. So I do wonder if, in general with Microsoft, they want it to work on ARM as well as x86 and sort of have it so it can cast that wide net to where if a partner, let's say they do open it up and it's like, hey, partners can develop systems like we're seeing with the ROG Ally, as it looks like they're poised to have that announcement here pretty soon for a PC handheld that's Xbox themed. Maybe they do want to have the Xbox ecosystem work on something that's ARM-based. You know, and we see Microsoft pushing for phones and other devices there. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. Not that Microsoft's next generation console will be specifically ARM-based, but that, hey, if a partner wants to be ARM-based, it can, and it all work together. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Chris, who says, even having these leaked specs doesn't tell the whole story. There is a lot of technical magic happening that doesn't get translated one-to-one with technical specs. It's probably safe to assume these specs will get you minimum performance expectations. I think at this point, we just need to see the games. Like, it's pretty obvious. You look at, people are comparing it to the Xbox One. The Xbox One can't play Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty. That's like the first thing, boom, right there. Just point to it. It's not playing that. All right. So I think now more than ever, like, let's just get the games going. Let's see what Nintendo has, even beyond what they've already shown us, because I think we're going to get into June, we'll have a Direct, and it'll start to set up not only throughout, I think, up to the holiday, obviously, for 2025. I feel like we're going to get a couple of bits and pieces, we'll say, of things that are still somewhat well off into the distance, just ways to get people more excited about just the generation at large, things that might be years off in the distance, but it's something to look forward to and that can work to define the generation, and of course, show what this hardware can do, because again, Monolith Soft, for what they've been able to pull out of the current Switch, imagine when they get their hands on a system that Nvidia says is 10 times more powerful, but it is a significant leap from what we have right now with the Switch. So that's the thing to me right now. What can they get out of it from a first-party perspective? And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to tune in to the latest episode of Game & Talk that happened last night. I'll leave it right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great weekend. I'll see you back here Monday morning, 8 Eastern Time for Newswave.